It always comes to this. More nice shit. Hello there guys, back into another tattoo progress update today. Where I last left off, I had showed off this section of my arm here with Rick. Let's see if I can pull it up all the way. Most of this is starting to peel now. It's pretty dry, haven't lotioned it today. Been at the shop the entire day. It's nearly 12 hours since I've been here. Rick had a late appointment today and so I stayed with him, and rather than come back in the very early morning and make this video, I decided I wanted to just go home and have something to eat after what has been a very long day, and not have to worry about making the vlog in the morning. So I'm sure you can understand just with a quick look at me. But yeah, Rick had an afternoon appointment and it was a new project, so we ended up staying here till about 7 o'clock, and I got in around 8 o'clock. So by the time I'm done here, it'll be, yeah, nearly 12 hours. That's alright. I used to put in long hours at my old job as well. I don't actually mind working all day or being at work all day. I'd be working on something else most likely anyway in my spare time. I drove Sarah and Terry home. Terry's car isn't going so good right now, so for long-time viewers of the channel, you'll know Terry has a obsession with cars, and that's where he spends his money. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you to death with that. Obviously, I have more pressing matters. I had a full redo of my head tattoo, the entire dome anyway, and parts of the sides. Where do I even start on that? Obviously I had, well, maybe not obviously, some people have probably not even watched the channel since 2023 when I was doing my last full head rework. But I had something like 16 sessions on my head in 2023. That was where we blacked it out, and to something I bring up all the time is we covered my head black out in a matter of 3 weeks. We did the thorn crown in 3 weeks after we blacked it out, and then we did the red velvet base around the thorns and around the bat in 4 weeks. So 3 weeks, and the next week we did the red velvet background, and we ended up doing, I think Rick and I did 3 sessions on the bat, and then I did like a second line on the thorn crown where we boldened up all the line weights, and we added bloody tips. Everything was passed 3 times, the front and back. I had lightened up the old opaque white and black on black roses on both the back of my, or not the back of my head, the sides of my head, and I redid the rose on the back of my head from blackout rose to an opaque rose, and so on and so forth. There was a whole shitload done on my head. And the red was still kind of patchy. I was actually at that point sort of convinced that maybe that was going to be the case, but I did have a mind to one day go back and kind of straighten it all out and do another pass, similar to how I did with my back, where we did the 2 passes of overall the color on it, and then waited about 8-9 months to do the final pass. Sometimes leaving things alone for quite a while, once you've established that color base, you will get a better return on your effort, rather than continuing to hammer the same tissue before anything is fully settled in. I do think that second, third passes are valuable even right away, but they're more valuable down the road. So this is actually a 4th pass red. 4th pass overall on the thorns, which were done over blackout, which was obviously covering a very full head tattoo prior. The bat has now been reworked 4 times, and this is finally the way I wanted it. To Rick's credit, the last time that we did the bat, He used opaques. He used a bunch of different opaque grays instead of soft black and gray shading. But they did hold up quite a bit better. I was actually surprised when I had my head shaved and really got in there and straight raised it down and got it nice and sharp. I could see that the bat hadn't actually changed much, and I was worried that he would change quite a bit, or the bat would change quite a bit, because the last couple times I've shaved my head bald, every time the bat has lightened up quite a bit. Those soft black and gray shades, they just don't work that great on a head, I'm convinced. I think that full color or very, very dark darks are a better play for the head tattoo. I think it sees a lot of sun. I think the scalp is pretty thick, can be hard to saturate to begin with. Also, just the nature of, you haven't seen it in a while. There's always like this kind of, what is it doing under there? And you probably forget what it actually looked like. Even when you have pictures, it's hard to tell. So I always feel like whenever I've grown my hair in and then shave it off again, and I've had this piece for a long time, it looks a little bit different every time. And I really just wanted to get it to a place where I was happy with it and expect it to stay more or less the same. Now, there was also the addition almost a year and a half ago of, we did this forehead peak, and it was originally done in black and opaques. And it covered an old forehead peak that I wasn't super thrilled with the way it finished, but it did work out more or less with the head tattoo as we had it. Whereas the forehead extension did not really fit with the rest of the head, or at least I was worried that it didn't. It fit better now that it was red, but I needed to shave off my head to see what was going on up there, just to kind of bring it into sequence or keeping with the rest of the head tattoo, because I didn't really want it to be a disjointed piece. One of my pet peeves is when people have forehead tattoos and they don't have a head tattoo and it's not really connected to anything and it doesn't really have any context to it. It's just a floating piece. Now, you could say some people are never going to shave their head or be bald, and so why would they worry about it? But to me, those things drive me crazy. Like, to me, the idea of thinking that my head was in any way in disrepair, you could say it's OCD, but I wanted to iron that out. So I'll get into all the inks we used and stuff, but first I want to mention we actually relined everything too. The lines were actually decent still on the crown. The one in the front was in a little bit of trouble, but everything else was pretty much as it was. I have pictures of it. I'll see if I can include that here. So it didn't really change much, but the red was a little bit darker and thinner than it was the last time I seen it, which isn't that surprising because, as I said, the black was very, very fresh at that point, and we were primarily using red velvet at that time for everything. And I've moved away from red velvet quite a bit over the last couple of years. It was a great red to start with, and I do think that it masks well with the black. But I've moved on to more primarily using brighter reds, and that's just kind of the direction that I'm going in. Everything is turning brighter. Obviously, this is all brighter than it was. And I also wanted to make the bat quite a bit darker. So there's a lot less negative space and soft shade in the bat now. And I think that this will help him stand out more long run. I'm the happiest I've been with the overall presentation of it. And I think that the gold thorns that we had to do to keep in kind of sequence with the thorns on my neck and my sleeve here, they help bring out the bat as well, because they're now not the same tone. Where before they were in grayscale, black and white on black thorns, they were very similar value to the way the bat looked before. And so they kind of had this like blending thing. It looked fine, but this definitely helps pull things apart. One more thing to mention is when we got the head shaved, immediately I've seen an opportunity to build the peaks of this forehead piece into the crown, as we had these like bluey white peaks that had been red and they'd been white and they were blue and then they were red twice. Terry turned them back to red the second time we did the forehead. So these peaks have been 4 different colors in the last year for the people who have been watching. And you could say that's absurd and stupid, and why didn't you play? Well, I'm not saying that it's always the best way to do it, but it is pretty hilarious that it doesn't really seem to make a difference anymore. Like, none of the rules matter. I've said before that I could turn all of my red green, and I really could. I could have it all changed in a year's time. It could all be green instead of red. It would be a lot of work to do it, but these thorns are proof positive of that. There's also the fact that Terry, when he did the red on my head last time, he was 2 years and some change younger as a tattooer, and that is a lot of time when you're like basically an apprentice at that time. So 2 years in his development has been a big change in his overall tattooing. Not the least of which is color saturation, which has come a long way since he and I started working together. So every single part of this would be in better shape for doing another pass now. It was just for me a case of I don't really like being bald all the time, and I actually don't plan on being bald for long this time. It was just bugging me to think about what those colors looked like, and I want to get everything up to snuff with the rest of my work. So we have another session planned on the head yet to do the red on the back and sides. There's a little bit of the sides done. Terry did a nice fade so that it looks sort of finished for now. But that's all going to get done again on the back and the sides, and we'll do that at the same time as we do the rows on the back of my head for the second time, much like the ones on my front here. They've been done twice, and they're quite a bit brighter than the one on the back. So that's been a planned thing for a while. I also want to do the second pass on the color in these, as they've only been done one time over the white and black. But yeah, lots of stuff coming up. Obviously, I've got the lingering chest blackout piece that I'm going to be doing, and a big eye over. But I'm giving that as much time as I can reasonably afford, so that the first pass goes easier than it could if we rushed it. So I've got quite a few things coming up, obviously. I'm not going to spoil all of it, but there's a lot more stuff to do here. In keeping with the spider webs that we did on the sides of my head and the back of my head, when the red heals and settles in, we're going to place some spider webs behind the thorns and on top of the red here to kind of tie it all together. And it should help to break up some of the riffraff and unevenness of the stuff that was in there, if any of it's still in there. It's hard to say now because, again, Terry's color saturation is a lot more advanced than it was. It may have an easier time kind of dissolving all of that mess that was in there still from the old line weights of the tiara that had been in the previous head tattoo that existed even through the head blackout. With that said, if it doesn't, the spider webs will help break up all of that stuff, and you won't really be able to tell. So I was most curious how these gold colors, all the yellows, would interact with all the different pigments that are already in the tips here. It'll be very interesting to see that as a science experiment, because there have been, as I said, 4 colors in there in the last year, and it's twice that it's been red. So twice red, once white, once blue, and now gold. So, yeah, interesting that it can still keep changing like that. It's as if to say that in 2 months' time we could turn that purple if we wanted to, and it would just work. Now, I don't think that I have magic skin either, so I don't think that I'm a perfect canvas. I think that this is just... the more you learn, the more you understand that everything you knew about tattooing was wrong, you know? And I won't make an argument that, 40 years down the road, that doesn't look like mush. God knows we'll all look like mush in that much time. And all of our tattoos will age pretty poorly as well. When you scale things out to absurd lengths of time, there's no telling what things will look like. And to be honest with you, I'll probably be lucky to be alive in that amount of time. So it's a bad plan to plan your life around that. With that said, the old head tattoo, as I mentioned, was done with red velvet. And you'll be able to see in the video clip of this taken fresh outdoors, the red is actually already calmed down quite a bit. It was brighter, very, very fresh. But this is Red Nebula, the same that's in the forehead. So it should taper off to something similar to that. Same as what we have over here. Although I will plan to do another pass on this at some point, as we had done 3 passes of red velvet and just 1 pass of nebula. I still think that could probably be a little more nebula in there, just because I'm OCD that way. With that said, it's not changing. So yeah, that should ebb off to about that color or very similar. And then we have 3 separate types of yellow in here. There's a darker yellow. I'm not exactly sure which one that was. I'll get it from Terry. Then there's a mossy, greeny yellow. And then we use golden yellow. And to keep the blood distinct from the red frame, we used True Blood Red by Fusion in the bat himself for the blood and the eyes. And yeah, we were planning on whipping a little bit more turquoise off the leaves if we needed to, but I think that the red background has done the trick fairly well. And then in the bat himself, all we used today was a diluted Panthera, so almost like a Panthera black wash, which got a really nice shadowing effect in the ears and some parts of the face. And straight Panthera black. There were no other tones used, as most of the mid-tone was already there still. There was no need to do anything but the darks, and I really, really liked the effect that we got. So, yeah. With that all said, next week I think I'll be leaving the head to heal a bit before doing the rest of it. We got most of what I wanted to do with the head done in this session. It was about 5.5 hours, and it was a really, really easy session. I like getting my head tattooed. There were times when I could have had a nap, especially early on. Towards the end, the skin's getting a little tight, but it was nothing at any point that was unbearable. It was perfectly tolerable the whole time. It's the longest session I've had on my head, but because I've had so many head tattoo sessions, I already knew that I could do it just fine, and that the skin would hold up too. I've got a lot of experience having my head tattooed, so there were no surprises at any point. And so I actually think that we probably could have done the sides of my head and the back as well today, but that would have been worse for healing, and it would have been hard to sleep on. So that's okay to wait for another day. And 6-ish hours on your head is long enough for healing. I think that that's a lot of color saturation in general, especially because we're not just blasting through. There's a lot of detail and different tones and colors and stuff in here. So anyway, with that, I will be talking to you guys again here when I get my next session done with Rick. We're going to be working on the elbow finally, and hopefully we have a good result with that. But my expectations with my elbow are always modest, to say the least. All right, I'll talk to you again soon. Have a great day.